Yesterday, we told you about the Canon EOS R1, that it would be announced in January, February, or March of 2024, that it would get a big boost in resolution. Today, we'll give you a complete breakdown on the latest Canon EOS R1 leaked specifications gathered from Canon Rumors, the Camera Insider, and information received on this channel. So stick around after this short break for all the details. But first, subscribe to this channel for a chance to win a Canon EOS R5. I'll be giving one away to one lucky subscriber once this channel reaches 100,000 subscribers. Anyone above the age of 18 with a valid mailing address is eligible. Additional terms and conditions are linked in the description down below. Yesterday, Canon Rumors told us that we've been told by two sources to expect some kind of announcement in Q1 of 2024. They also told us that we've been told that quad-pixel autofocus isn't ready and won't be featured in the Canon EOS R1 image sensor. But what else do we know about the Canon EOS R1? What do we know in terms of leaked specifications or leaked images? And this year we have received a lot of leaked information about the EVF, the LCD, and other stills and video capabilities. But rumors of the Canon EOS R1, well, they go all the way back to 2020, and some of them said it was going to have a global shutter, quad-pixel autofocus, and a resolution north of 85 megapixels. And some of those in the latest rumored specifications by Canon Rumors have definitely poo-pooed quad-pixel autofocus with a CR3, and that's Canon Rumors telling us with a fact it's not going to have quad-pixel autofocus in the Canon EOS R1, and most likely the resolution of the sensor, well, it's not going to be 85 megapixels, it's not going to be 100 megapixels. Anything with that sort of resolution is going to be reserved for a 5 series camera, like a high megapixel version of the Canon EOS R5. We're not going to see it in the 1 series, which traditionally is aimed at sports fast action photographers, but also for videographers. And in the past, we actually had a DC model, but this time around, we haven't heard about that. So we believe we're going to get one single camera with a sensor resolution of somewhere between 40 and 50 megapixels, essentially twice that of what the 1DX Mark III had. So I think right around 45 megapixels makes sense. Some of you have suggested that could they do what Nikon did and give their Z8 and Z9, they both had the exact same sensor, and do the same with the Canon EOS R5 Mark II as well as the Canon EOS R1? It's definitely possible. We could see that, but one thing all the rumors are pointing towards, and this would be a huge surprise if this didn't happen, but that sensor, whether it's going to be 45 megapixels, 50 megapixels, whatever it is, it's going to be around that sort of resolution. It's going to be stacked, a stacked full-frame sensor. Now, one thing, this goes all the way back to 2020. We had rumors that the Canon EOS R1 was going to have quad-pixel autofocus and a global shutter. Now, Canon Rumors has shut down the idea that it's going to have quad-pixel autofocus and a global shutter. Well, there's nothing out there saying that it is going to have a global shutter, and there's nothing out there saying that it isn't. Leaked specifications on the Canon EOS R1 are coming out in drips and drabs, so we don't have a whole lot of information at this point, one way or the other, on the type of shutter it's going to be. At this point, I'm willing to assume it's going to be the standard type of shutter, a rolling shutter and not a global shutter, and my reasoning for that being is we've made such huge progress in, well, sensor resolution, sensor speed, stacked sensors. We've got so much faster image processors, and we're able to push a whole lot more data in the camera a whole lot quicker, and that lessens the need for a global shutter. But cameras like the Red Komodo X 6K S35, they do have a global shutter, and it certainly makes sense. It certainly adds a benefit to that camera, especially shooting video. But as far as the R1, well, we just don't have any mention of that. Now, in terms of the ergonomics of the camera, it is going to be larger than the R3, but we don't know how much. It's going to have the same sort of ergonomics and feel and button layout as what we've seen in previous 1 series cameras. Now, the button layout is going to change, obviously, and the types of configurations that we can perform will be different. But I would basically take that Canon EOS R3, make it a little bit bigger, and of course, we're going to have that 1 series battery in there. We're not going to have any of those LPE6NH batteries. While we don't have any leaked specifications for the video capabilities of the Canon EOS R1, Canon Rumors did tell us a couple of months ago that those video capabilities are being worked on by their development team. And that's a really big deal because their development team also played a part in the 1DC. If you'll remember back something like 10 years ago, 2013, 2014, we had two 1 series cameras, one designed for photographers and one designed for videographers. And I'm not hearing that they're going to be splitting those two up, but to have the video capabilities developed by the cinema team, I'm intrigued and I'm impressed here. Will we get that same OS in the R5C brought into the 1 series so it'll have a different operating system? I don't know, but that's intriguing, right? Or will they basically just have, it'll be the same operating system, but they're going to be in charge of all the capabilities, whether it's going to do 8K 60 frames per second RAW, whether it can do 8K at 120 frames per second, whether it can do 4K video up to 240 frames per second, 480, and I can't see Canon going higher than that, but there are video cameras out there today that can do 1080 frames per second, but the resolution isn't very good, and these are, well, camcorders or video-centric cameras. No, I think if Canon does increase the frame rate in 4K, I would see them going up to around 240 frames per second. But what I would really like to see on the Canon EOS R1 is the oversampled 4K video. So 8K oversampled 4K all the way up to 120 frames per second. It might be a little bit softer than 60 or even 30, but having that full sensor readout would be terrific. And of course, because it's going to have a stacked sensor, we'll have better dynamic range, better low light performance, so definite benefits there as well. Oh, and one other thing that's going to be rather interesting, it's becoming a little bit of a, how should I say this, one of those topics that's getting a little bit sensitive on the discussion forums, that this camera, the Canon EOS R1, is going to have Type-C, and that if Canon wants to be innovative, if they want to future-proof the camera, they're going to come out with a Type-C slot and a Type-B slot, both CF Express. I don't believe that makes any sense, and just bear with me before you put a comment down below and hear my reasoning for this. Now, right now, all the cards that I have for the Canon EOS R5 are CF Express Type-B Gen 3, so Generation 3, and what that means is I'm capable on some of these cards by Angelbird of recording directly to the card a sustained 1.48 gigabytes per second. 1.48 gigabytes per second. Now, what does that deliver? Well, as far as video goes, you can do 8K at up to 120 frames per second, and that only requires 850 megabytes sustained. Okay, so 650 megabytes, that's 8K 60 frames per second. But it's on the stills side. When we go to stills, believe it or not, stills uses a whole lot more bandwidth in the camera and in terms of storage than video. 1.2 gigabytes per second is what is required for shooting 20 frames per second, lossless RAW at 45 megapixels. That's right, 1.2 gigabytes per second. So that's pretty close to the 1.5 limitation that we're seeing right now in Gen 3. So if the Canon EOS R1, for example, wanted to double that and go to 40 frames per second at 45 megapixels, lossless RAW, well, the CF Express Type-B Gen 3 wouldn't be fast enough. But the CF Express Association has just approved Gen 4, and what that effectively does is give you Type-C, literally Type-C Gen 3 speed specifications in Type-B. That's right. So Type-B Gen 4 is capable of up to around 3.6 gigabytes per second. Now that's pretty fast. That's more than fast enough for 40 frames per second at 45 megapixels lossless RAW. Now video, unless you're shooting 32K video RAW, you're not going to need that. You're going to be fine with around 1,000 megabytes per second, which is CF Express Type-B Gen 3. So there's really no need, no justification to go to CF Express Type-C, a larger card taking up more space inside the camera for what, 7.2 gigabytes per second? If you can give me, this is a challenge for you. If you really think CF Express Type-C makes an awful lot of sense, I'm challenging you to give me a use case where it would need anywhere from 3.6 to 7.2 gigabytes per second. Bytes, not bits. That's a huge amount of data. Let me know in the comment section down below. But now it's time for looking at the LCD. Now the LCD, we don't know the resolution, although it's supposed to be higher than that of previous cameras. I do hope that the LCD does have that 4-axis LCD found in the Sony a7R5. But the resolution at this point we don't know a lot about, but it's the EVF where we have a lot of information. The EVF is supposed to be 7.x million dots. Now, it's not going to be 9.44 million dots that Sony provides in their cameras, but from shooting with the Canon EOS R5 for the past few years, I don't really see a problem with 5.76 million dots. It's pretty good, and at having 7.x million dots, that's definitely an improvement. Where I think we're going to see a huge improvement in the EVF is in the refresh rate. Are you ready for this? From 60 all the way up to 240 frames per second, a variable rate and blackout free. The size of the EVF is going to be 0.78 inches. Nits, we talked about this before, 4,000 nits. Now that's peak brightness. I can't imagine that. I just recently purchased a new watch here. It's capable of peaking up to 2,000 nits, and when I'm outside in bright sunlight, yeah, that's terrific. I can see it. But you see, I'm looking at a watch face with the sun glare off it. I don't have any sort of protective cup or anything to sort of, what word am I looking for here? You can put it in the comment section down below, but some sort of shade so where I can look in like this. So I've got the full sun on it, and 2,000 nits is more than bright enough. To look inside of the EVF of a camera that's got 4,000 peak nits, it's pretty impressive. So 2,000 nits here. The Nikon Z9, I believe, peaks up to 3,000 nits. The EOS R1 going to 4,000 nits. What's the Sony Alpha 1 going to do? 9,440 nits? Boy, that's a little bit too bright in my books. It's going to use an LPE19 battery, or at least a variation thereof. Most likely it's going to bump up the amperage. And in terms of, well, announcement date, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Canon Rumors has said that the announcement is going to happen in January, February, or March. Canon Rumors has also said, as well as the Camera Insider, that the Canon EOS R5 Mark II is likely going to be announced sometime in the weeks or days before CP+. But what Canon Rumors did say about the R1 is some kind of announcement, so it doesn't mean that they're going to do some sort of full-on announcement. In fact, what they've said in the past is Canon's going to start a slow tease of the Canon EOS R1. So what I think will happen maybe in the first couple of weeks of January is they'll come out with some sort of teaser video, or perhaps they might start off with a development announcement like they did in 2019 for the 1DX Mark III. They had a development announcement on October the 24th or 28th, which is about a week from today. And then in, I think it was the second or third week of January, we had the full-on announcement. But I think this is going to drag on a little bit more. So we do have the announcement, some sort of announcement is going to happen in the first 3 months of 2024. Then we're going to have a slow teaser of an announcement before we get a full-blown announcement. This is very similar to what happened with the Canon EOS R5. Remember the Mark I, we had Canon Rumors came out with something the end around January the 28th, January the 27th, full leak specifications of that camera. And then within about 4 weeks, we finally had a development announcement from Canon. 4 or 5 weeks after that, Canon Australia said the king is back and provided some more information saying, yes, it can do 8K RAW at 30 frames per second, and yes, it can do it with IBIS and with autofocus. And then at NAB, while Canon was talking about a whole bunch of other cameras, they really went into detail about the video specifications of the R5. And that's what I think we're going to see with the Canon EOS R1. Now, what about pricing? Well, we've seen pricing all over the place. Canon Rumors has indicated that they could see a price up to around $8,000 or at least $7,500. I'm not going to go that high. You see, when it comes to pricing, what I do is I simply look at traditional prices, I look at pricing increases, I look at inflation, and let's take a look at the Nikon Z9 because really that's the closest competitor to what the R1 is going to be. And that camera, well, the D6 used to cost, what, $64.99, and we were expecting the Nikon Z9 to come in at $64.99 as well. But no, Nikon dropped the price. It's $54.99 or $54.98. So Canon's got to be aware of that. They can see the price of the Nikon Z9. It sells very, very well, as does the Nikon Z8. So I think the pressure on Canon isn't to increase the price that much. I could see them do $64.99 all the way up to $69.99, but I don't see them pushing it that much higher, maybe $72.99, $73.99, but I can't see them going much higher. And if you look at the pricing history of R series cameras, well, you see the pricing all over the place. Prices go up a little bit, sometimes they jump up quite a bit, but what we've also seen is prices jump or fall down by a significant amount from one version to another. and then of course they'll go up again. So it's not completely unexpected to see the price at around $64.99. The price could also go down a little bit, but I think the most likely price point for this camera, if you're budgeting, if you're planning to purchase this camera, expect to pay somewhere around $64.99 to $69.99 just for the body alone. And now I want to talk about a brief giveaway that I have for you. For many years, I used to do all my editing for this channel on the MacBook Pro, a 2015 edition, and I used to use this overlay. I love this because it fits down on the keyboard and it has all the keyboard shortcuts, well, most of the popular keyboard shortcuts for Final Cut Pro. And what I like about this is that it's very easy to actually type while using this. It doesn't get in the way. So what I'm doing is I'm giving this away free. You don't have to pay for it, but I'm not shipping it. It's for anybody who's willing to come to my local town, which is in Aurora, Ontario. So if you're in the Greater Toronto area, it certainly makes sense. But if you're living in the United States or outside of Ontario, I certainly don't encourage you to come by. So if you are interested in this, it is free. All you have to do is come pick it up. To reach out to me, just simply go to my YouTube channel, which you're probably watching already. Click on my name, Ordinary Filmmaker, and then you'll see a bunch of tabs. Click on About, and if you don't see that, there's probably an arrow. Click on that until you see About. And it'll allow you to see my email address. You might have to do one of those stupid things such as pick all the images that have a bicycle in it, but once you do, send me an email and saying, hey, I would like to get this keyboard layout. I think it works really well. You can see it's quite flexible. One thing they also do too is they help keep the keyboard clean. However, if you are going to close the lid of your laptop, take it off, because what it can start to do is put impressions on the screen. It's not going to damage it, but all the film from your fingers will start to go on the screen, and that kind of defeats the purpose of keeping your screen clean. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera gear news and rumors, then go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you also choose all notifications. Not only does it help you stay up to date on the latest camera gear news and rumors, but it really does help get this channel noticed and help this channel grow. But for all those minor news and rumors, pricing information, or all those news stories that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, then go ahead and follow me on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter. And I'm constantly tweeting out information. Like right now, you can get the Canon EOS R3 for $1,000 off, the R5, R5C, both $500 off, and there's sales on a whole bunch of other cameras, the Nikon Z6 Mark III, Mark II, a whole bunch of other cameras. And if you're looking at purchasing gear such as those cameras, please use these links to Amazon, Amazon.com, B&H, or Adorama. I've also got the links in the description, because whenever you use these, it doesn't cost you anything. You don't miss out on the sales, but I get a small percent back, somewhere between 2 and 6%, sometimes 12%, which really helps fund some of the major purchases on this channel, such as the R5 Mark II, which I can guarantee you I'm going to pre-order, as well as the Canon EOS R1. Unless, of course, Canon does something silly like make it $10,000 US. At that point, you know, maybe a C300 Mark III might make more sense. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Most likely, very soon.